should also be publicly televised. Why? Because people need to see the beginnings of those programs and know who contributed ideas. You need to know who's thinking and who's not. The other thing is when there's a major vote, like the vote they had regarding the parking meters on the spur of the moment, we should have the equivalent of what they have with American Idol, an opportunity for people to call in and register their opinion with their alderman. Now it's not binding because the alderman has to vote the way they want to vote, but at least the alderman can never say that they didn't know what the people thought. It gives people input. That's how you get people involved in government. You make them part and parcel. That's why people watch American Idol, because they got a vested stake in it. We have to do the same thing right here in the city of Chicago. We have to have a government that works. These are the kinds of things that Harold Washington would have done had he still been here. He signed the Shackman Decree. We created the Mayor's Office of Inquiry and Information and put Sally Johnson in charge of it so that people didn't have to go to their alderman to get answers. They could come direct to City Hall. And then you had consistency throughout the city. And those are the kinds of things that we're going to do as mayor of the city of Chicago. So we're going to create jobs, self-perpetuating private sector jobs, not just public employment. We're going to bring factories here. We're going to go after those factories with a vengeance. We're going to create a drive to employ people through small businesses, 2,000 businesses that we're going to give $1 million each, a grant for jobs creation. And for every $20,000 we give them, they'll be able to create one self-perpetuating private sector job. We're going to create millionaires in Chicago. We're going to make Chicago the place that's known for zero unemployment. Let there be unemployment in the suburbs. Let there be unemployment in Indiana. Let there be unemployment in Iowa and Michigan and Wisconsin, but not right here in the city of Chicago. Everybody that wants to work will have a job right here in the city of Chicago.
The ones that's working there now come from the suburbs.
That's right. We got people who come in here working in the circle. We will stop privatization. We will not balance the city's budget on the backs of city employees. They will not have to take furlough days anymore. Why? Because we'll go to the major corporations that do business in Chicago, the major vendors who get government contracts, and tell them you have to limit your profit margin. Right now, many of them get 30% profit margin. So when you take the McHughes, the Kennys, the Walshes, when you take K5, when you take those major developers or major construction companies, they do a $100,000 project, and that project might take 6 months, but they earn $30 million. More
than that.
That's right. So nobody should get rich at the taxpayer's expense.
And 80% of the jobs on these construction are people in suburbs.
That's right.
And you got to understand, these carpenters are making 80, 90,000. Operators make over 100. You look, Clifford had a saying that the only blacks on the Dan Ryan are people in the cars.
That's right.
Okay.
You know what?
Right.
And Hispanics are light years ahead of African Americans.
Yeah.
You know what? And you have a mayor that says there are no black contractors. There are. Let them go up and down the street and see all the people out of jobs. Right. You know? And how do you? But the thing is, how do you become how do you have a company? How do you have a construction company if you haven't been a laborer or you haven't been a mason? You have to step up to the plate.
That's right.
As far as the police department, when I worked at CHA, you have to have an independent review board.
Right.
When I grew up, you trusted policemen. They don't trust me. When I worked at CHA, there was a Commander Radley there, who was a good guy. They would take the kids from one development and bring them to another just to get them beat up. I seen it. I was Philip Jackson's executive assistant. And the thing is, you have to have trust. In order for the community to respond with the police, they have to trust. Sometimes the community fears the police as bad as they fear anybody.
No, that's an important point. So what we do is, rather than have police officers ride around aimlessly through their beat, we're going to have them park those squad cars outside of the parks and go and introduce themselves to those children and keep those parks safe.
Okay.
Because those children swing on the swings in fear of a bullet hitting them the next time they come forward.
Yeah.
So we want police officers out there getting to know those young people in the community. That's proactive policing.
Yeah.
Years down the line, that pays off huge dividends.
Yeah.
And so instead of sending those children over to the other building to get beaten up. We want them to take those children to the other building and introduce them to some of the children that they know and show them what they have in common so that they're not inclined to kill one another. There are solutions to the problems that we have.
Don, I have a question. We have the destruction of public housing. Very little are left, but Leclerc Court is still standing, and it's a walk-up unit type situation, townhouses, and so is the other one up on Diversey and Lathrop Homes. Can we get a commitment that we can stop the destruction of public housing, because it's the safety net for people who have come onto hard times?
Absolutely. We will stop the destruction of housing in Chicago, period. One of the very first things that we did when Harold Washington took over in 1983 is stop the demolition of buildings in communities. And as soon as Daley came in, he put them on a fast track and started destroying even more. Most of these are sound structures. They shouldn't be destroyed. In New York, they don't tear down their projects. They make them habitable. It's a structure. That's all it is. It may be an image to some people. It may be a political boondoggle to others, or a threat to others politically, especially if they don't control those precincts and those buildings. But we will not be tearing down Lathrop Homes or other
Leclerc Court.
Other housing throughout the city of Chicago. We will stop the fast tracking.
Actually,
demolition.
I was there when they started this thing, and actually the mayor has. If you look at the people that are redoing the Lathrop Homes, is a guy is an Hispanic guy, and the mayor knew when we were there. He knew that the people from the project were going to cause super pockets of poverty in the city needing care. It was a land grab. It was a land grab. And Victor Reyes, which we all know, he's the one that's developing Lathrop Homes. You know who the Victor Hacia and HDO, and he's the one. And if you look at, I'm very familiar on Diversey. The other side of the river are multi-million-dollar townhouses.
Right.
They want that.
Exactly.
If you go to New York, there's 100,000 apartments that are in perpetuity. That means that they'll be there forever. The mayor was short-sighted. Not only did he dismantle CHA, we don't have 4,000 jobs there that we used to have. So even Brentwood, she thinks affordable housing is a $600,000 townhouse on State Range. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work that way. So we got work to do, and our job is to get the message out to anybody and everybody that listens. This is going to be an interesting race. It will be a free-for-all, but it's what we expected, and that's why we got involved in the dry political run for governor. Now, make no mistake about it. Dry political run doesn't mean that you were just practicing. It means that you were preparing even for that race and for lightning to strike. For example, when Barack Obama announced that he was going to run for the U.S. Senate, he didn't really believe in his heart of hearts that he was going to win that race. He just lost to Bobby Rush and wasn't able to really raise the kind of money that he needed to win that race. So he figured he'd engage in a dry political run for the U.S. Senate, build his name recognition, and build his organization up, and then come back and beat Bobby Rush. But lightning struck, because Blair Hall, who'd spent $35 million, hit a rock in the water and his boat sank. Barack sailed through. And then along came Jack Ryan. He hit a rock in the water. Barack's boat sank, his boat sank, and Barack's boat sailed through.
Okay.
So then you had Barack Obama, U.S. Senator with limitless potential, but it's because he engaged in that dry political run. So you do that most places. Chicago's not used to it. They think that you're supposed to sit at home for 4 years and just wait your turn. It doesn't work like that. So we're smart enough to know that you're darned if you do, darned if you don't, and guess what? I'd rather do than have them talk about me than don't and have nobody know who I am.
And since I'm going to post this on YouTube, tell us who your three stooges are, the first three to get rid of.
The first three that go in the city of Chicago are Superintendent Weeks, then Ron Huberman, and then that thing called the Denver Boot.
Okay, thank you.
That is the third stooge that has to go.